Hello and welcome to Idling Action London's Air Quality Workshop. Let's get started. Today we will learn why it is important for our health to have clean air. We will learn about pollution, where it comes from and why it is bad for us. And we will learn how we can prevent and avoid pollution every day. We will then prepare messages to share with drivers around the school as part of an idling action campaign. And we will design no idling posters to spread the message about clean air. Idling Action London is a project funded by the Mayor of London. We want to make the air we breathe cleaner and safer, and we do this by targeting idling engines, an unnecessary source of pollution. Natalie and Jack, the project officers, visit hundreds of schools across London, spreading the message and engaging with drivers. Why is air pollution so important? When we talk about pollution, we might think about rubbish that is dumped on the land or plastics that pile up in the sea. Lots of you have heard about these important problems at school or on programs like Blue Planet. Another big problem is the pollution in the air we breathe. Pollution is so important, not just because it affects the environment, but because it damages our bodies and is bad for our health. Dirty air affects all of us right here in London and can make people very sick. This makes air pollution an immediate concern. The air we share. We breathe all the time. We know we need to breathe to stay alive, so let's think about why breathing is so important. Take a deep breath in now. What are we inhaling when we take a breath like that? Oxygen is a really important gas in the air. There is also carbon dioxide and some other gases. There might even be some pollution, smoke, or dust in the air that we are inhaling. But most of the air that we breathe is a gas called nitrogen. It is a neutral gas. It isn't good for us or bad for us. But when it is around something very hot, like a car's engine, it can turn into a gas that is very bad for us, called nitrogen dioxide. Take a look at these pictures and think about our bodies and why we need clean air. What organs in our bodies need oxygen, and what would happen if we didn't have clean air to breathe? We use our lungs to breathe in air or inhale. Lots of pollution might make our lungs poorly and make us cough. Our hearts need to take the oxygen in our blood around our bodies. Actually, all of the organs in our bodies need clean air. What condition might this young man have if he's using an inhaler? Yes, he has asthma. That means he might find it hard to breathe sometimes. When he's having an asthma attack, his chest and throat will feel very tight. Children who grow up in polluted areas are more likely to suffer from asthma than children who grow up in places with clean air. Why do you think I've included a picture of these children in class? Because if they are studying and learning, they're going to be using their brains. Scientists have worked out that children who grow up in polluted areas find it harder to concentrate in class. Our brains need lots of oxygen so that we can think well. Breathing clean air and getting good exercise, like walking to school in the morning, gets oxygen to our brains, which makes us more alert and helps us to study. What happens when we breathe dirty air? If we're around dirty air, it might make us cough and splutter. It might make our eyes, nose and throats red and itchy. It could cause headaches and it might even give us rashes on our skin. But if we are around dirty air for a long period of time, it can cause more serious health problems. It can cause severe asthma. It could cause lung disease and heart disease and other conditions like dementia, diabetes, and osteoporosis. It could even create problems for people who are pregnant. Air pollution can make us very sick. This means that people might miss school or work and can't see their friends and do the things they enjoy. Our lungs, hearts and brains need clean air to develop. This is why it is so important for young people to have clean air to breathe when they are still growing. The pollution problem. We've learned about the air we breathe and why we need clean air to stay healthy. Now we're going to meet some of the pollutants, or types of pollution. Being around these pollutants is bad for your health. They might not make us sick straight away, but being exposed to, or being around, pollution for a long period of time can make our health worse and worse. There are lots of things in the air we breathe that can be harmful for our health, but generally, when scientists talk about pollution today, they are looking at these two things: particulate matter, or PM, or nitrogen dioxide, which is called NO2. Nitrogen dioxide is created in really hot air around fires or engines. Particulate matter, or PM, is what we call tiny particles, dust and soot, that are smaller than the width of a human hair. Because they are so small, we can breathe these particles into our lungs, where they might be taken into our blood and cause us harm. Where does pollution come from? There are lots of places that smoke, dust, or particles in the air come from. Look at the pictures below and see if you can name some of the sources. Pollen from plants can give us runny noses or itchy eyes as it irritates our throats and sinuses, so it could be considered a type of pollution. Volcanoes emit poisonous gases, ash and smoke when they erupt. These would make us very sick if we breathe them in. Wildfires are a cause of pollution because of all the smoke they create. We might not have many wildfires near London, but can you think of somewhere in the world where there have been lots of fires recently? When there were lots of fires in Australia, people were told to stay indoors if they had poorly lungs or a poorly heart. When there was lots of smoke, the government told people not to exercise outdoors. What do you think this picture is showing? It is a desert. Now, what's coming off the desert? Sandstorms around desert create lots of sand and dust, particulate matter, into the air. This might be blown a long way by weather systems and the wind. Dust from the Sahara Desert can even blow on the wind to come to London. All of these types of pollution come from natural sources, so there's not a lot we can do to prevent them. They might be made a long way away and be blown into the city by weather. But what about sources of pollution that we are around every day? What about man-made sources of pollution? Emissions and fumes from cars create pollution that is harmful for our health. As cars burn petrol and diesel in their engines, fumes created come out the exhaust pipe. There are 2.6 million privately owned cars in London and many more cars driving through the city each day. Road traffic is responsible for half the particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide in London. Diesel cars make more pollution than petrol cars. Electric and hybrid cars make less pollution, but they may be expensive. There are still things that drivers can do to make less pollution in their petrol and diesel cars every day. Trains also create pollution. Pollution levels are high on parts of London Underground, even though the trains are powered by electricity. This is because the movement of the trains and even the escalators creates dust and particles underground. The brakes that stop the train create particulate matter as tiny bits of dust come off when they grip the wheels. This is true for cars as well. What do you think this picture is showing? What might be the source of pollution here? It is a factory. As factories burn fossil fuels, they create smoke and pollution from their chimneys. Industrial areas, or areas with lots of factories, might be especially polluted. What about this picture? It shows a lot of people's houses, but what is coming out the chimneys? Some people might have fires in their homes to stay warm, but most of us will have central heating. This means we have a boiler, probably in your kitchen, that burns natural gas. This is going to cause some pollution too. Wood and coal create a much dirtier type of smoke than the gas we burn in our boilers. And there are parts of central London where you are not allowed to have fires because of the pollution they create. These are all sources of pollution that humans are responsible for. Anything that involves burning creates pollution. Although we cannot avoid making some pollution, there are changes that all of us can make that will make the air cleaner. Look at these two pictures. Think about where they were taken and when. They both show different bridges in London, one in 1952 and one in the present day. What differences do you notice about the air in both pictures? Let's start with a picture from 1952. The air in this picture looks very thick and grey. It is a cold, foggy day, and it's hard to see things that are happening in the distance. We can see smoke coming out of chimneys in the background. What do we call it when there's a lot of smoke and fog together? We call it smog. London used to have lots of smog. This picture was taken during the Great Smog, when air pollution was so bad, lots of people got very sick and died. There was so much smoke that you couldn't see in front of you, and ambulances couldn't even drive to help people. In 1952, London had lots of factories. This was before most people had gas central heating too. What fuel did we used to burn in our factories and homes in the old days? That's right, we used to burn lots of coal. Coal creates a very thick, sooty type of smoke with lots of particulate matter. There are still parts of the world where there is smog, but we don't get a lot of smog in London anymore. That's because we don't burn a lot of coal nowadays. What do we notice about this picture of London in the present day? What are the differences between London now and London in 1952? First of all, we can see more buses and lorries, tall buildings and cranes, and London is much busier now. We don't see any factories or coal fires. The air looks much clearer. We can't see any smog. But remember what we said about nitrogen dioxide and the pollutants that are created by vehicles. Nitrogen dioxide is an invisible gas, so the pollution today is very difficult to see with your eyes. So we know there is pollution in this picture, and that it can still be harmful to us, but the types of pollution are more difficult to see. How do we know where it is polluted? Because pollution now is often invisible, we have to design experiments and use scientific equipment to tell us where there is most pollution. These little test tubes are called diffusion tubes. They can tell us how much nitrogen dioxide is in the air. You might notice a continuous monitoring station on a street near you. These boxes contain equipment that tells us more about types of pollution in the air every day. What do you think this map is showing us? It is a map of all of Greater London, and it's showing us the NO2 concentrations. Now remember, NO2 was nitrogen dioxide, a really important type of pollution. So it's showing us where there's more pollution and less pollution around the city. The blue colours, especially the dark blue, shows where the pollution is lower, And the yellows, oranges, and reds show where the pollution is particularly high. We know that there will be more pollution in the middle of the city because it's busier. There are more cars and lots of big buildings all creating pollution. What do you think the spidery little lines on the map represent? They are roads. We know that most of the pollution in London is created by road traffic, and pollution is highest around busy roads. What do you think this yellow area of higher pollution on the outskirts of the city might be? What could there be that's making more pollution at the edge of the city? It's Heathrow Airport. The engines and the planes and all of the traffic nearby means that there is higher pollution. What can we do for clean air? So far, we've learned about why pollution is a problem in London and specifically how it is unhealthy for our bodies. It may feel like a really big problem to fix, but there are plenty of things we can all do to prevent and avoid pollution. We know that cars and traffic are a big part of the problem. Take a moment to think about how you get to school each day. How could you get to school without using a car, maybe? There are ways we can get to school that make less pollution. We know that petrol and especially diesel cars make the most pollution. Some cars, like electric or hybrid cars, will create less pollution. They are a really good choice, but not everyone might be able to afford cars like these. When we use our bodies to get around, walking, scooting, or cycling, we call it active travel. Active travel is really great because it makes no pollution. It's a great way to exercise, and if you're active before you get to school, you will be alert and ready to learn when you arrive, and it's fun too. We can protect ourselves against the effects of pollution. Sometimes we might be able to choose not to walk or play around roads that are very busy, or if it's a day where there's really heavy traffic, we might choose to avoid certain streets. By avoiding busy roads, we are exposed to less pollution and will not breathe as much of it in. Sometimes schools are able to work with officers from the council to make play streets. This means that the road outside of a school is closed off so no cars can drive by. If there are no cars driving past a school, what might that mean for the air pollution in the school? It would make the air around the school cleaner, and would also make walking and playing outside safer too. Looking after our bodies and staying healthy is really important. Exercising and eating healthy foods will look after our hearts and our lungs and make us better defended against pollutants in the air. Active travel, like we said before, walking, scooting and cycling, are really great ways of getting exercise on your way to school every day. Another really important way of stopping pollution is by passing the message on to more people. If we tell others how they can make less pollution, more people will join in the fight for cleaner, healthier air, and we can multiply the positive changes that we are making. Now's the part of the workshop that we're going to look at idling, and we're going to think about things that people do in their cars every day that might make pollution that is bad for people around them. When something is idle, it is not doing anything. So when a car is idling, its engine is still on, but it is not going anywhere. If a car has left its engine running but is staying in one place, the pollution that it is creating is not spread out like it would be if the car were moving around. The pollution will stay in one place, building up around the car. Remember this map. It showed us that nitrogen dioxide levels are highest around busy roads. Generally, the closer we are to the source of the pollution, the more pollution we breathe in. So even if we are a few paces further away from a busy road or an idling engine, the air that we're breathing in still might be cleaner than if we were right next to that engine. Young people may be exposed to more pollution on the roads than adults, as they are shorter and breathe closer to car exhausts. Lots of idling happens around schools at drop-off and pick-up times. Young people have to travel when the roads are busiest and pollution levels spike. This is why it is so important to tackle idling around schools. Young lungs are delicate and should be protected from pollution, especially pollution caused by careless behaviour. Can you think of some reasons why people might leave their engines running? They might be waiting in traffic. They could be avoiding a parking ticket or can't find somewhere to park. They might just be nipping out. They could be picking someone up or dropping someone off. If it's a very cold day outside, they could be staying warm with the car's heater. And if it's a very hot day, they might be using the air conditioning. They could be on the phone or charging their phone, or they could be listening to music. Normally, when someone has left their engine running, they are not thinking about the pollution they are making and how harmful it is. When they're in their cars, people are usually focused on comfort and convenience, so we might need to remind people to think about the pollution they are making and how it can affect us. You could look at idling as a bad habit. We want people to remember to switch off their engines when they are pulled over or waiting somewhere. Grown-ups sometimes need to be given a message a few times before it sticks. So we've also got to think about how we can give them that message in a persuasive manner. If we are polite and friendly when we're sharing our message, people will want to listen to what we have to say. If we are in a car with someone who has pulled over and left their engine running, what can we say to that person? We can say, "Please, can you switch off your engine?" And we could even say, "It is creating pollution that is bad for our heart, lungs, and brains." Always be polite and give a fact if you can. Switching off when pulled over is the easiest way for us to tackle pollution. Everyone who has a car can do it. It costs nothing and even saves fuel and money. Running an anti-idling campaign. At Idling Action London, a big part of what we do is anti-idling campaigns, especially at schools. A campaign is where you talk to lots of people and spread a message. Our message is that there are things we can all do to make the air we breathe cleaner and safer. The easiest way to do that is to turn off your engine when you're pulled over. Before we start the event, we think about facts about air pollution and idling that we can share and how we can speak to people in a persuasive and respectful way. We give out leaflets like these and we ask drivers with their engines running to turn them off. We also ask them to pledge not to idle again. A pledge is like a promise, so they won't just turn off their engine today, they will try to remember to do it in future too. Another important part of what we do is counting the conversations we have with drivers. We use logs that look like these to find out how many drivers we spoke to. Let your teacher know if you would like us to run an anti-idling campaign at your school. We can give you the details on how to participate in the future. Natalie or Jack can visit your school and lead an event. Your school will join more than 300 taking part in this project and working for cleaner, safer air. If it isn't possible for us to visit your school, there are still plenty of ways to get involved. Get in touch and we can give you resources and lesson plans of great things to do to spread the message about idling. We've learned about the air we breathe, pollution, and why our bodies need clean air. Now it's time for you to design your posters. The main message to communicate is no idling, because we want clean air for our lungs, hearts, and brains. Think about the facts you want to share and pictures you want to include. How could we show someone the pollution made by engines? Maybe you could show a car with smoke coming from the exhaust. We want to target the drivers around your school and tell them what they can do to make the air cleaner. A really great way to change people's behaviour is to suggest things that they could do instead. We could suggest that everyone drives electric cars to make less pollution. But not everyone is going to be buying a new car, so think about achievable suggestions and things that people can do today. Think about catchy slogans too. You can skip back through this video to get any extra information. Your posters can be any size or shape. Make them eye-catching using bold letters and bright colours. If your school has made arrangements with us, we will be able to turn your poster into a banner so that we can put it outside your school. Here are some examples of posters made previously as part of the project. Thank you so much for listening today. We're really looking forward to seeing your posters and hope we can visit your school to run an idling action event soon. In the meantime, think about how you can spread the engines off message to drivers and ask your teachers to get in touch with us for more activities and ideas to tackle idling and air pollution in London.